Welcome to Redtastic. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for refusing my dying mom's wishes? Some backstory for this. I, 27 female, grew up in a home that was psychologically very unhealthy. As an example, at about 2 years old, my mom threatened to leave my dad and take me with her if he didn't give her 20K. This happened multiple times throughout their marriage. My mom was never good with money and was constantly in massive debt due to a gambling addiction and general poor choices. My dad is a very spiritual person, putting a lot of stock in the till death do us part portion of his vows. So while this raised a tsunami of red flags, he paid. My mother was addicted to prescription medications, frequently attempted to find someone else using sites aimed at finding sugar daddies. And her one true love was and always will be money. I gave up on her at the age of 10 when I went to friends' houses and understood that this wasn't normal. My dad gave up and divorced her when I was 18. Since the divorce, I didn't try to keep in contact with her, and she didn't really seem interested in being in my life. Occasionally, I would receive threatening text messages telling me how awful of a daughter I was for not talking to her. The only information I know about her comes through my aunts, her sisters. Now today, and really the basis for my question, my mother has been diagnosed with MS and is barely able to move. She's 55 but looks about 90 years old. She lives with the man she moved in with after the divorce, who has reached out to all of her family, including me, asking them to take her because I can't do it anymore. I know now that she is and always was mentally ill and had undiagnosed borderline personality disorder. She's a sad person with a sad life. I grew up and became a therapist who works with kids who've experienced trauma, and I know that my mother's behavior is not entirely her fault. And I also know that I can't forgive her for it. Recently, my grandmother passed away, and I saw her for the first time in 10 years. My mother's roommate reached out to me to encourage me to see my mother, as she isn't doing well. I refused, provided him with resources and support options, but maintained that we haven't had a relationship and won't be starting one soon. He called me an a-hole and reminded me that she won't be alive much longer, and I can't stop thinking about it. So dear Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing my mother's dying wishes to see me and make a relationship with me? You're not the a-hole for not wanting to see your mom, OP. You two haven't had a relationship since you were 10. That's a really long time. It's sad that she's terminally ill and her roommate is stuck trying to care for her. But he shouldn't call you an a-hole just because you refused to take her from him. You gave him resources that he can use. He should try that. Why would you start a relationship with her now? The only thing her present will do for you is bring back old memories and feelings that you've tried so hard to live past. You're not an a-hole, OP. The situation is a tough one, and you deciding to not engage with her at all is the best choice for you. Now for some comments. Someone who never cared about you doesn't deserve your attention. Also, as a therapist, I'm sure you would say the same to a client who had an abusive parent. I'm in therapy for a manipulative and abusive parent myself, and my therapist keeps reminding me that I have no responsibility there, and that people have to live with the consequences of their actions. I'm sorry you had to deal with growing up with this trauma, but she doesn't deserve your help just because of a blood connection. She used that up years ago. Not the a-hole. Don't go. I just have this weird feeling about him contacting everyone in the family to take her off his hands, and following that with this guilt note, like you'd be walking into a trap. He's not focused on her need for closure with you. He's focused on an escape route for himself. I can see you walking into the house, him stepping out to give you privacy and never coming back. And you would be stuck because you can't leave an almost paralyzed person with a terminal illness alone in a house and get on an airplane and fly back home. Not the a-hole. I haven't spoken to my mother in about a decade. She's an awful person who does awful things. Her health has been declining, so I'm told. And I've gotten the guilt trips as well. What these people will never understand is that you have been mourning her for years. Even though the logical side of you knows she will never choose better, deep in your soul, you've always hoped, ever smaller, that maybe she will choose better sometime. And now never is looking real and permanent, and that hope is shrinking. There's more mourning to do. It's a kind of cruelty that anyone who hasn't suffered it can't understand. I'm sorry. You deserve better, and these people need to leave you alone. Reddit Mom for a Minute can be really cathartic if you need it. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for making my date pay for part of the bill after inviting her out? So first off, I'm at my first job. I get paid okay, but not great. After rent and other expenses, I have about €600 spending money left over. It's not bad, but not great. Recently, my sister set me up on a blind date with one of her friends. We met up once for coffee and hit it off well. We've been talking on social media since, and last week we spoke about what foods we liked. We both like sushi, so I told her I'd take her out for sushi on Friday night on me. So our second date was set, and we met up at a pretty nice sushi restaurant on Friday evening. I asked if she wanted to share a platter, but she wanted to order her own. My food came to about €25. She ordered a bunch of stuff, but I didn't pay a lot of attention. Had I known what it was going to cost, I might have said something. I just assumed it wouldn't be over the top. The food came and she got a humongous plate of food compared to me. Seriously, it must have been enough for 2 people, maybe even 3. I even helped, but we finished less than half. She took the rest home as takeaway. Then the bill came. Her sushi totaled up to €78. I was shocked at how much she had ordered. With my food and the drinks, the total bill came to just over €125, before even factoring in a tip. I told her that I knew I had said I would take her out for sushi, but I simply couldn't afford to cover the bill alone, and that she would have to contribute. I felt really bad, but for me that's almost a quarter of my monthly spending money, and it just didn't feel fair considering how much more expensive her food was. That she didn't and couldn't possibly finish. She seemed visibly upset and told me she couldn't afford to cover half, so we agreed that she would cover a third. The rest of the evening was very awkward and she was very cold towards me. We both took the train home and shared a train for part of the route, but she barely spoke. If I asked her anything, she would just answer with short responses. When I had to get off to switch trains, she just said goodnight and barely looked at me. I knew that she was pissed and I probably wouldn't hear from her again. On Saturday, I got a call from my sister, who started shouting at me about what an a-hole I was, that I was a greedy gremlin and a effing cheapskate, and how she has never been so embarrassed in her life, and would never set me up with anyone she knew ever again. I tried explaining to her why I made her friend pay, but it was no use. The girl had apparently not only called my sister to tell her about what happened, but had also made a post on Facebook about it. I have been blocked by her on all social media channels, so I haven't seen it myself, but apparently it was far from flattering. I feel pretty bad because I did invite her out and told her I would pay, but I wasn't expecting her to order food that was more than triple what mine cost. Am I the a-hole for making my date pay part of the bill after I said I would treat her to dinner? You're not the a-hole, OP, and you should be happy you dodged a bullet. Yes, you invited her out to get sushi, and it was implied that you would be covering the bill, but apparently, you should have been clear about how much you were willing to spend. This would typically not be an issue because the polite thing to do in a situation like this is to not go overboard when ordering and try to match your food with whoever was paying, but apparently she didn't get the memo. The fact that she was mad at you and then ranted to your sister about how the date went tells a lot about her character. Don't look bad. Be glad you dodged this bullet. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. It's tacky to ask someone to pay mid-date, even more so because you had offered beforehand. But it's downright greedy of this chick to order that much sushi and ridiculous for your sister to freak like that without hearing you out. Keep this as a life lesson. When you offer to pay for the date, take her to a place you can undeniably afford, even if she orders a shit ton of food. Not the a-hole. Bill came to $125 and she ordered $75. Why the F is she ordering food she can't even pay half for? She was taking advantage of you for a free meal. Never order food you can't realistically pay for on your own. Don't go out on the town with a $5 wallet while eating $50 steaks and be like, my bad. You told me you would treat, so let me get my grub on. Nah, you order what you normally do, not what you can get away with. Everyone sucks here. You are because you did say you would take her out on your dime, and you picked the place so you were expected to understand the cost. She is because she, unknowingly or intentionally, ordered way too much food. She could read the prices too, and adults are expected to take responsibility for what they are racking up as they order. She should not have acted so childish as to barely speak on the train ride home. Talk shit about your date to your sister, post about it on social media, and then block you. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for scheduling my wedding the weekend before my sister's? I'm American and just got engaged to my Aussie fiancé a little over a month ago. We have started planning our wedding and have run into a big problem. My fiancé's parents, brother and sister-in-law, and nieces and nephew have been planning a family trip to the US for a long time, and they've already booked their flights to California next August. Their plan is to stay with us for a little over a week and then spend another week and a half on a road trip across the Southwest, Grand Canyon, Monument Valley, etc., before flying out of Dallas. My sister Jess is also getting married in August, and my fiancé's family already knows we won't be available that weekend and have timed their road trip to start a few days before the wedding. However, they will be in our city the weekend before that. I asked my fiancé if there's any way his family would be able to fly to the US twice in 1 year, and he said no, because round-trip flights from Australia are very expensive. We would have to push the wedding back another year minimum for them to be able to make it out here again, which we don't want to do. My fiancé says he's okay with his extended family not being able to make it, but it's really important to him for his parents and brother to be there. After a lot of conversation, we decided to go ahead and set our date for the weekend his family will be in town. I sent an email to my parents, grandparents, and Jess last night, explaining our decision. Well, Jess left me a really upset voicemail this morning saying our aunts, uncles, cousins aren't going to be able to afford to travel across the country for 2 weddings a week apart. She thinks they'll just go to mine because it's first and skip hers. I feel really bad about the timing, but we didn't choose the date with any malicious intent. We just want my fiancé's immediate family to be able to come. Am I the a-hole? Now for some comments. You're the a-hole. I don't want to wait. Isn't really a good enough reason in my opinion. Jess is probably thinking, I don't want half my guests to ghost me. We don't always get what we want. If you really want to be married this year, have a super small wedding. Invite his family and your parents and siblings, and not the out-of-town extended family. You shouldn't have a bridal shower or bachelorette party that month either. Yup, you're the a-hole. You're making all your family who would have to travel for your wedding or sister's wedding choose between the two of you. You knew your sister's plans already. You just don't care if your extended family attends her wedding. Your sister is 100% right in her assessment. About the only way to recoup this would be to not invite the extended family to your wedding. Have a small wedding and leave them to attend Jess's wedding. You're the a-hole. You got engaged only a little more than a month ago, and you're already trying to take away from your sister's wedding that she has been planning for longer because it's convenient for you. Not only would you be hurting your sister and devaluing her wedding a bit, but you'd be putting your out-of-town relatives in an awkward situation by forcing them to choose between one wedding over another. Either wait or find some way to get his family in the States some other time this year. If you really insist on having the wedding the week before your sister's, then tell your relatives who can't make it to both weddings to attend your sister's only.